Welcome to the Jeremy and Andy Talk Movies podcast. We're back with another week of just talking movie topics.
Which, not that that's bad. Not that that's bad. I so enjoyed that run we were on of new content we were able to do, but we still get to talk movies, so it's a win.
Yeah, and I just want to start by saying that this weekend I did, for the first time in several weeks, just sort of dedicate my weekend to watching a bunch of movies.
Nice.
That said, I did not watch a bunch of great movies because I was watching the movies that I had available to me, new to watch. And so there's 3 streaming movies I watched, watched 2 movies in theaters. I'm just going to throw those out there rapidly to you just to kind of give you the breakdown. So Friday night, I watched the movie Jackpot, which is, I think, on Prime.
Yeah.
John Cena and Awkwafina.
Also watched it.
Did you?
I did.
It's not like...
Dude...
just total stay away from it. It's just kind of like flimsy premise. Like it always just these movies feel so half baked.
They do.
What it feels like.
They do. I'm just gonna tell you I have a soft spot for John Cena. I think he's really funny.
He is funny. But
he is funny. But yes,
it definitely
you are correct.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they wrote a character. They just said, John Cena, go be funny.
Go do some John Cena type stuff. I know.
It takes place in LA, and apparently only about 30 people live in LA.
Yeah, it's a much more calm version of LA.
Yeah.
Look, you could pick that movie to death.
Yeah.
But yeah, John Cena, the dude's got this just charm and this willingness to just go for it. I will give him that.
Yeah, he doesn't mind making fun of himself.
No, that's kind of turning into his thing, really.
Yeah. So that was the first one I watched.
Yeah.
The second one I watched was The Killer, which is John Woo remaking John Woo.
Yeah.
And,
that's where we've gotten with remakes. They're now remaking themselves.
It's one where I sit there and go is it actively bad? No, but it's breaking zero new ground.
Yeah.
John Woo, does he know how to direct? He does, but he never cared about plot.
No.
And that's very evident.
Sure.
And it has one of my, I think maybe the most unintentionally funny scene of the year so far.
Nice. Do
tell.
Tell.
Is great in a year that includes some masterpieces of unintentional comedy like Madam Web.
Yeah, that's just one long unintentional comedy.
Yeah. So this cop in the movie has an encounter with the main girl who is the hired hitman, and she gives a fake name. She says her name is Mrs. Noon, Noone, and then after she gets away, he has the revelation that she's not who she says she is, and she escapes. And he looks down his notepad where he wrote down her name, Noone, and he thinks about it for a second and he goes, and draws a line between the 2 O's. So
no one?
Yeah. But just in case the audience didn't catch it, back to the notepad, he underlines no, underlines 1. And I just died laughing.
I bet.
They were in case audiences didn't get it from the line between the 2 words, I've got to underline.
In case everyone watching this movie is an idiot, let's spell it out, which is what we talk about a lot. We don't like when movies spell things out. This is literally spelling it out.
It was, I mean, it's literally twice the reaction shots of the cop going look.
Is the music dun dun dun?
And the poor guy that plays the cop is not a bad actor. He's a guy I've seen in things before.
It's just nothing to work with.
You're really you're setting him up to look dumb with this.
Yeah.
So again, a movie I watched it and I was I'm not offended by how bad this is. It's just
kind of there.
Kind of is.
Yeah.
And then Saturday I went and saw Reagan.
Oh, nice.
It's only available in the Decatur Theater in the nearby area. It's already 1 weekend was enough apparently for Champaign. And
I think it's doing small but decent business too. I don't get that when they pull movies so fast. It
was me and 3 much older couples in the theater.
Yeah,
much older.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
I had the only non-white hairs in the theater. I think it's not a great movie.
Yeah,
it's just, and it's not.
Is
a
it
great
the
movie
whole biopic thing that we talk about?
And it's just whatever. It was so unfocused, is what I would say about it.
I feel like they often are, because they're, like we talked about, they're always trying to cram in the entire life story. Yeah.
And so when it tries to get to these poignant moments, you're I didn't really feel like it built up to that poignant moment because you were doing too much. You didn't, if you would have just, that's why I always say, if you're going to do a biopic, the best biopics usually are when you just give us a slice of life. Because it allows you to really focus and build the whatever specific drama. And
our other theory is just that the documentary has taken over the need in a lot of ways for biopics.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I watched Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
It was exactly what I expected it to be. I have no special affinity for the original, and so going into this, I'm just like, all right, let's hope that I'm at least entertained. And I'm like, it's just Tim Burton's one of those guys who just likes to be so weird that it never really got any momentum for me. Like I'm just like, there's too much weirdness where I'm just like, why are we doing this?
I was thinking this weekend, I can't remember the last Tim Burton movie that I thought, this is a good movie. And it's not like I'm sitting there going, man, his movies are awful. But it's the same thing where you just go, okay, like, that was weird.
And he's another guy who, like, he clearly has some talent. Like, there's
like,
some shots in the
made
movie where
movies that
I'm
I
like,
like.
yeah, where I'm like, that's cool. I love that he's somebody who likes practical,
Yeah, that's
like
cool.
he does.
That is cool.
But he just, I mean, the culminating scene of the movie, not to spoil things, but the culminating scene of the movie is done to a song playing. It's like an entire song playing where characters are miming, singing the song, or Beetlejuice is making people sing the song. And it just like, it carries on so long. And I'm just like, this is really how we're going to spend the climactic, several minutes of this movie is how long this is carrying on.
Yeah.
It just.
Do you see how much money it made?
I'm sure it made a ton.
$110 million this weekend, just in the U.S.
That's crazy.
So it's a huge shot in the arm to the box office. So,
yeah.
But yeah.
And we kind of talked about how when you have these down weeks, like we've had the past couple of weeks, it sets something up like Beetlejuice to be more successsual than maybe it would be.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny theater story for this one is I went in and got my seat. I walked in probably 15 minutes after the preview started, as I like to do.
Yeah.
But in one of the previews, I'm in the Big D experience with the Champaign AMC, the IMAX, and
they could probably come up with a better name than that.
I feel like the audio's been off the past couple times I've gone there, where the dialogue is quieter than all the surrounding sound.
Yeah.
And so on one of the previews, it was the Wicked preview, which I don't care about, but I've seen it enough that I know, like, hey, I'm supposed to be hearing things here, like voiceover that I can barely hear mumbled and the other sound. So I was like, I'm going to go just see if I can mention it to somebody. And I got up and started to walk out, but then the next preview started, and it sounded better. And I was like, so I didn't even get all the way out of the theater. I was like in the hallway, side hallway of it. I was like, oh, okay, maybe somebody just went and fixed it. Maybe somebody else went and said something.
Yeah.
And I walked back, and when I walked back, a mom and a group of kids had sat down in my seat. And there's the couple sitting like right behind me, and they like had seen me sit down, and I kind of made eye contact with them, and they had this look like, I don't know what's happening either. And so I was just like, I guess there's seats in front of them. I'll just take that. And then I was sitting behind kids that were kind of loud the whole time. I mean, one of them dropped his phone down like to the seats where I was, and I tried to help him find it. I couldn't. He had to reach down, and like a minute later dropped it again. And the mom was like, just give me the phone. And I'm like, thank you. But
oh my gosh.
it just.
So like we've talked about this on here before, having been to the movies a ton this year, I'm amazed at how many people have a hard time figuring out where their seats are.
Yeah.
Or how often someone sits in someone else's seat. I'm like, people, this could not be labeled any more clearly for you. Yeah. Like, I don't understand how people do that. So again, public service announcement, figure out how to figure out where your seats are.
Yes.
Like, I'm sitting there so many times this year, and someone's just looking at their ticket, looking down, looking around, and you're just like, oh my gosh, you're making me rage right now. Like, you are taking something that is so easy and making it so complicated.
Yes.
I feel for you.
Yeah. The last movie I watched last night was a Netflix movie called Incoming. It's a coming-of-age teenagers party movie. Yep. Not breaking any new ground. No. It's got all the sort of standards of the genre.
It does. I watched it also.
That said, of the 5 movies I watched this weekend, it's the one I'd give the highest mark to.
Pretty enjoyable. Yeah.
I was like, I was entertained throughout this movie, even though, like I said, not breaking new ground and hitting a lot of the familiar beats. It hit those familiar beats pretty well.
Yeah. So I haven't been to the theater like we've talked about in like 3 weeks now, but I've just been knocking out streaming movie after streaming movie after streaming movie to varied success.
Yeah.
I found my way to Hulu this week, and they had this huge list or like category almost of just generic shark attack movies.
Nice.
And somehow I ended up watching like 4 of them. I don't know why. I loathe myself, I guess, but whatever. And I watched Jackpot. I watched Incoming. I feel like I watched something else too, but I can't remember right now. So
The other movie on my list of movies that are streaming is the Netflix movie The Union with Mark Wahlberg and Halle Berry.
Halle Berry.
Not because I think it's going to be a good movie, but just it's a movie on there that's promoted pretty well. And
still, my whole thing though of like how is a movie starring Mark Wahlberg and Halle Berry just going straight to Netflix?
yeah,
Like that just bums me out. That, obviously back in the day, of course, there's no other huge theater release. I miss that stuff. I don't like it when these big stars do straight to Netflix movies.
yeah, and I mean, we obviously know a lot of the filmmakers don't like it either, except for that when Netflix gives them big budgets to do whatever they want, then they allow it. But I mean, we obviously saw with Roadhouse, that was a big ordeal.
Yeah, he was mad.
He was straight up mad. And then the irony is his very next movie just goes straight to Apple TV.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's just sort of the new reality that filmmakers have to deal with. Is a lot of stuff's going straight to streaming.
I just don't like it. That's why it makes me like even more, like the Nolans and the people of the world who just absolutely will not cave. Tom Cruise, these people that just will not do this straight to streaming stuff.
Yeah. We need. There are heroes. We need them.
Not
all heroes wear capes.
They don't. Keep on keeping on, guys.
That's right.
Tom Cruise is weird, though. He probably does wear a cape. He probably just wears one around the house.
Now I would be disappointed if I found out he didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that I've got that wonderful image in my head.
Yeah.
All right, so last week, we talked about people we thought were going to be bigger in their career.
Yeah, that was really fun.
People that, we had at one time bought a lot of stock in, so to speak. If you could buy stock in actors, say I think this guy's going to be big, so I'm going to put my investment in him and then see it pay off. And then it just didn't pan out for various reasons that we talked about in there. So this week we wanted to pair with that idea, the idea of, okay, well, who are people now that we think are going to be big that years from now we'll assess either we were right or they'd be on a future, I thought they were going to be bigger pod.
Right.
And this one we talk about this often. We don't do a lot of comparing notes beforehand. We don't even do a lot of strategy. We kind of like, here's the topic, you approach it, I'll approach it, and we'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
This is one where maybe it would have been helpful for us to talk more because I have a feeling we're going to have really different approaches to this, but that's okay because it will lead to some different discussion.
Yeah.
And if we had the same approach, maybe we would have had sort of two similar results too.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it, I'm getting very nerdy about it, as I do every time I make any sort of list. I get super nerdy about my list.
That's okay.
And I was like, okay, if I'm viewing it as like buying stock in these actors, I was like, it's a lot like actual buying stock. I do this, I talk through this a little bit with students every year, how your stock market, you've got your like blue chip stocks, like Apple and Walmart, that sort of thing. You buy into those, it costs a lot to get in, it's going to be pretty safe. Those aren't going to take a big dip. They're very solid stocks, but you're also not going to make a lot because they're already at top price.
Right.
Yeah. And, that would be where I had a list of basically actors who, I've got a lot of stock in them, but they're kind of at that, like, they're at high price right now. They're Apple and Walmart stock right now. I was like, where you really make your money is you got to find those upstarts that people don't know about that are still cheap.
The ones who are sneaking up on us.
You put money on them, and then you hope to catch them before they blow up. And, that's how you make your money. And I was like, I was trying to target more of those. Now, that said, that was a way harder task than I anticipated.
Yeah.
I was making a list, and I was like, I've got way more names that I'm looking at. I'm going, they really belong more in the blue chip stock thing than like rare up-and-comers that not a lot of people know. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is, I think, and they both are related. They're both, I think, related to getting older. I think as you get older, maybe you look a little differently at younger actors.
Yeah.
And you're like, young people, whatever. But also just when I'm younger and I watch a movie and I really like it, I emotionally attach to the people in that movie. We talked about Adam Sandler a couple weeks ago.
Right.
When I watch Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, I go, that's my guy.
Yeah.
And like suddenly I'm connected to him for life. And the older I get, the less that effect happens. The less I see movies where I go, because I like this movie, that is my person.
Yeah.
And so I don't have as strong investments as I used to, where every time I watch a movie that I just loved, I felt myself like really attached to those people.
Interesting. Yeah. But you're right though. Like you said, and once to me, for me, once someone's my guy, it's hard to shake that.
Absolutely.
Like you just want to keep that person like, this is my guy. And it's hard, especially when it develops like, like with Sandler, like when you're 12, 13, 14 years old, it just carries on. And it's hard to just be like, okay, he's no longer I'm just washing my hands of this guy.
Right.
I don't care anymore about his career.
And we compared it then and the same now of like bands. Most of the bands I listen to are bands I started listening to in high school.
Exactly.
I've added a few along the way, but when you're in high school, you're adding all sorts. You're collecting bands, and then they're your bands forever. Like we talked about, you liking Guns N' Roses still, and that's perfectly normal. Like that's a lot of the bands I like are from high school, and it's harder now for me to be like, oh, there's a new band that I'm really into.
Well, that's exactly why I have this deep love for 70s movies. Because when I was 14, 15 years old, that's when I was discovering The Godfather and Taxi Driver and Apocalypse Now and The Conversation and all these movies. And that's why I have this love and this knowledge of these older movies, because those became my movies at a crucial time in my movie life.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So I said we can go actors, actresses, or even filmmakers on this. I will say I had a harder time again with filmmakers than I expected to.
Did you? I came up with a couple.
So I've got honestly, we're sitting here, I've got a long list, and I have not made any final decisions on any of them, of which ones I'm going to pick. When it gets to me, I'm going to panic pick, and we're going to talk about that one.
So I kind of did the same thing. It's just like, when you're in junior high and they're teaching you how to write an essay, is the very first thing you do is brainstorming. You just jot down that's what I did. I just brainstormed, and I just started writing down names. So
awesome.
I don't have some fancy system. I just thought of names. And of course, it's like when I say like young or up and coming, it doesn't always mean like literally young in age.
Right.
Young in Hollywood or young, minimal credits, minimal film credits, stuff like that.
Well, and I was explaining to somebody, not that they were asking, but I was explaining to them, it's so different than, say, sports. Where like if I'm drafting for futures of NBA stars, like Steph Curry is still one of the best NBA stars, but he's older, and so I'd be like, well, I'd rather have Luka Doncic because he's 15 years or whatever, 10 years younger, I guess.
Right.
And that makes all the difference. I was like, but there's no guarantee that Brad Pitt won't have the better next 20 years than any 20 to 30-year-old on this list, because actors can just keep going. He's just going to play older parts.
And then it's like we talked about last week. Sometimes with these people that you didn't think are going to make it, some of them are just probably one part away from reemerging.
Yeah.
So it's not an exact science by any means. It's just really comes down to just opinion.
Exactly.
And that's what I base it off. And I thought to myself, like, I did give myself the criteria of like, I have to have seen this person in more than one thing. Because, not anyone, I shouldn't say that. People can pull out one good performance kind of randomly. If you pull out two, it's like, okay, now I feel like they're probably on their way, or at least they have the potential to be on their way.
Yeah.
So I try to give myself that criteria.
I arbitrarily decided 35 and under for mine. One thing I did do was help narrow down a couple that were just over 35 that I still think of as younger, but probably because I think anybody my age or below is young, and here I am about to turn 40. So
I know.
So I knocked off at least 5 years of credibility. I think the oldest person I had on my list before I checked ages was 41. So it wasn't like I had a ton of older guys, but I will say a little different for filmmakers, because filmmakers, I feel like, don't start usually until they're older than actors and actresses. So, like, I might have a filmmaker who's 40 or so, but that's young for a filmmaker, I think.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
So last week I went first. I'd like to allow you to go first this week, Andy.
Well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a couple really obvious ones out of the way. And to use your analogy, kind of like the Apple, Walmart, I'm still going to go, using this stock analogy, I'm still holding real tight to my Glenn Powell, Sydney Sweeney stock.
Absolutely.
And I know I'm knocking out two people at one time, but I don't even really have a lot to say. But if you're thinking of like, who is the future, I guess they really don't even qualify as up and comers because they're here.
Right.
But it's like, if you're using this analogy of like stock, like we do, which I stole it from Bill Simmons and the Rewatchables.
Right.
But it's like, I mean, who doesn't have their, all their eggs in that basket? So I'm going to stick with those two.
I think they're great picks. They were right near the top of my list.
Yeah.
I think especially as you're thinking about who's going to have great sustained success over the next decade, 2 decades, whatever. Not only are they red hot right now, but they're both people who seem interested in making mass appeal movies.
Yeah.
Like, that's something I actually found a little tricky with a couple people I picked, where I'm like, I think they could be stars, but they also seem to be interested in doing some unique stuff that may not make them stars.
Yeah.
Glenn Powell was like, I'm going the star route.
Oh, yeah.
I want to be Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to be like, well, yeah, I'm going to buy stock in that guy because that guy,
he wants it.
He's going to be that.
I mean, and to me, obviously, like, best shown in Twisters this summer.
Yes.
Where it's like he obviously wants to do these, really entertaining mass appeal blockbusters. And again, not to sound repetitive, but we always sound here, I'm not anti-blockbuster. I'm anti-stupid, lame, lazy blockbuster. And Glenn Powell is not doing that. I love Twisters.
Yeah. And if you just look at his last 3 movies of Anyone But You, Hitman, and Twisters, they're all crowd pleasers.
Yeah.
But they're all different.
Yeah.
So they show like, he's not going to be limited to one thing.
I think he's got range. He's got the look. He's got the charisma, and he seems to be choosing wisely. And we've talked a ton about Sydney Sweeney and Madam Web and what a disaster that was. But it's like, I think in a way that speaks to her kind of stock and stuff, where it's like you didn't hear, people hated that movie and laughed at it, but nobody was going, well, Sydney Sweeney's done. I think it was basically like, you know what, she can absorb the blow.
Exactly.
And then she followed that up pretty quickly with Immaculate, which was not a huge moneymaker. I think it was profitable, but I like that movie. Like, I think she's really good in it, and she's there's no comparison to her character in Madam Web and her comparison in Immaculate. I mean, it's her character in Madam Web is not even a character, but it's like Immaculate. You're like, you know what? She's good. And now she's proving she can do something a little different, and she's, a nun and all that stuff. Very un-Sydney Sweeney-like, but I thought she pulled it off. And, just like I said, these are not hot takes to pick these two, but.
Right. And I just always like to point out, even though it's not like I got him super early in his career, Glenn Powell's been acting since he was a child.
Yeah.
But 2016's Everybody Wants Some is where I discovered Glenn
out.
Powell. And I remember thinking specifically, I don't watch a lot of movies where I go, is there going to be an emerging star from this movie? But with Everybody Wants Some, I think because it being the spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused, which did have a couple people who became stars in it. It had, of course, Matthew McConaughey. It's his star-making performance. It also has a young Ben Affleck in it.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Watching that movie, I was like, is there gonna be somebody who emerges from this cast like McConaughey did from? And when I was watching the movie, I was like, well, if somebody's going to, it's that guy. And Glenn Powell was that guy. So like in that moment, I was like, I'm buying a lot of stock in this guy.
Yeah.
And then watching him blossom like this, it's one of the reasons why I've enjoyed his success so much, is because
you caught it early.
I feel like I did get to invest, maybe not into the startup stage, but in the early stages before the stock really shot up. I bought in a whole bunch of stock, and I'm really feeling like I get to reap the benefits now of calling that one early. Yeah,
and I just think he's going to be very prominent in movies going forward, and I'm like you, I'm anxious to see, to be along for the ride. So,
good call.
Yeah, play it safe right out of the gate.
All right, so I feel bad that I categorize these. I said high end, mid, and low. And low sounds so insulting. Right. I don't really mean it to be low. I just mean like, and really the way that I sort of categorize this is based on like what I think their name recognition is probably like to the general public right now. Like I think the names I put on high end, if I said them to most anybody on the street, they'd be like, oh, I know who that is.
Right.
Glenn Powell is one of those guys. Yeah. But on the lower end, names that like you and I would probably recognize, I wrote down Brandon Perea, and he is, of course, from Twisters as well.
Yep.
He was from Nope, we talked about. Yeah, and I think it's the fact that I loved his performance in both those movies and didn't even realize it was the same guy at first. That made me go like, okay.
This guy's good.
This guy's good, and he just leaps off the screen in both movies.
He's got an energy to him, like he just like that's a great pick. And
so I'm like fascinated by what he might do next because I've just got no idea. Like, I don't know what he's going to eventually. I don't know if he'll even eventually be the lead in a movie.
Yeah,
he might always be a supporting guy, but he might be one of those supporting guys. He might be, this generation's Bill Pullman or something.
Right.
Who just always shows up and is like a scene stealer with this high energy, sort of manicness.
Yeah.
And
that's a great
we need
choice.
more Bill Pullmans. So.
We do. Yeah.
Or Paxton. Sorry, Bill Paxton. Is
yeah.
what I was trying to say.
Bill Paxton. Yeah.
Pullman.
Bill Pullman. He's got such an energy in Independence Day when he has no emotion at all.
Oh my gosh, that's such a distinction there. Bill Paxton. My apologies.
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
that's a great choice because he is awesome in Nope, and it's like Twisters. Obviously Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar Jones are your focus, but it's like he's kind of manic, and twins, and he's yelling, and he gets off that great at the end when he tells Daisy Edgar Jones, like, I think I'm in love with you or something like that.
It's a part that very easily could have been kind of obnoxious or eye-rolly.
Yeah, like,
and
oh my gosh, yes, I get it. You're the comic relief guy. No, he's great.
Yeah.
Great choice.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Back to me already.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go, this probably falls under your category of maybe people in the street just wouldn't know this person, but I'm basing this specifically off of 2 movies this year that we've both seen and that we both liked. Kaylee Spaney.
Okay.
Really good in Civil War, really good in Alien Romulus. So to me, that qualifies as like, oh, this is someone I am willing to, buy some stock in. Because I liked, I thought she was just phenomenal in Civil War.
Yes.
And it was like I had no history with her at all. And so to me, I was like, I literally didn't even know her name. And I saw it and I was like, oh, I loved that performance. And so then I did a little research, like, oh, she's in the upcoming Alien movie. So that got me excited because I knew I was looking forward to that. And I thought she held her own. I mean, we talked about different things where it was like, it didn't really kind of build to her being this hero like they did with Sigourney Weaver. Mm-hmm. And I don't fault her for that, though,
No.
But it's like, just the fact that she is believable, holding these guns and fighting these aliens, you're like, okay, mission accomplished. So 2 for 2 this year, as far as I'm concerned, in movies. So really someone I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next.
You're right. She was very high on my board.
Nice.
I do just want to throw out here, because I did just run through and write down names of these people. So Brandon Perea, 29 years old. Kaylee Spaney, 26.
Okay.
So, a lot of career left. I'm right there with you where she was so good in Civil War, but it was the first thing I'd seen her in.
Yeah.
And, we talked about how young she looks.
Yeah.
As she's 26 years old, but could pass for 16.
And I think that's going to benefit her to be able to kind of play younger if she needs to.
For sure. But after Civil War, it's kind of like she was great, but like, is that going to be a problem? It was kind of a thought that I had, like, is she going to look too young? Like what? And then Alien Romulus was such a different part to pull off that it's a perfect example of what you're saying of you got to see him in 2 things to confirm.
Right.
Like, you're not just that one thing.
Yep. And that's what Alien Romulus was to me, where it was like, okay, like she's good. She's really good in this movie. And she's, like I said, most importantly, you buy it when she's fighting these aliens and wielding these assault rifles and stuff like that. You're like, okay, I'm in.
And I just hope that it's a sign that she's really good at picking projects.
I hope
she
so
picked
too.
2 great ones this year.
Yep.
I hope she just keeps picking movies that, I'll say it selfishly. I hope she keeps picking movies that I enjoy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because, again, there's a couple people on here that I wrote down that, okay, I'm just going to use this example. And I'm going to say her name wrong because it's impossible to say her name right. Saoirse Ronan.
Right.
She's someone who years ago I felt like I bought a lot of stock in, much like Kaylee Spaney. And I don't think that Saoirse Ronan's had a bad career in any way, but I think she is one of those people that considers herself an artist. She's a very talented actress. She makes a lot of movies I don't like.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a good example of it. Be like, name me, just 5 really awesome movies by her. And you're kind of like, well,
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I don't have any less of opinion of her as a talent.
Right.
But as I'm going, like, is she going to be one of the biggest stars over the next several years and make a bunch of movies that I'm like iconic, IMDb movie list? I don't have that confidence because I think she's always going to choose more artistic stuff.
Right.
Whereas I hope someone like Kaylee Spaney makes more fun choices. I hope she makes more movies like Alien Romulus and Civil War.
Well, and just a good example, too, of like you can be, both, I would say, definitely Civil War and even Alien Romulus, they aren't just popcorn movies. I mean, they have some prestige to them.
They're respectable movies.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good. There's the balance there where she's not just making Transformers 11.
Right.
She may be making Alien, whatever, but it's like, but this is a respectable movie that clearly some passion and thought was put into.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, just a great, leap out of the gate for her, and just a really great accomplishment to have Civil War and Alien Romulus within 3 or 4 months. I think Civil War was April and Alien Romulus was August, so pretty small window there, and to bust out 2 really good movies.
Yes, indeed. All right, I am going to also pick someone who's been in a couple of movies this year. Another young lady who's, I think, up and coming is Catherine Newton. Mm-hmm. Catherine Newton was in Lisa Frankenstein, and then she was in Abigail this year. And I forget, she was also in that like Hulu throwback killer movie.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was called.
I know.
But it was another.
There's so many of them.
Well, she was in the movie Freaky.
Freaky, yeah.
And actually, I guess that was theatrical, but I saw it on like Hulu.
I think that was Freaky during COVID too, and it's kind of both
yeah,
almost.
I think it might have been.
And she's really good in that. Like she has to be Vince Vaughn.
Yes.
In a series. Yeah, she's good.
So anyway, like, and again, all those movies I'm mentioning kind of have a similarity. They're all sort of like horror comedies type things, but I just think she's really good and charming in them. And just each time I've seen it, the first couple of movies I saw her in, it was like she looks familiar, and I'd have to look it up and be like, oh, she's that, or she's
now
also
she
in that.
Becoming...
And now I see her and I know that's Catherine Newton.
Yeah.
And again, maybe she's not going to be a huge star, but I like the style of things that she does, and I just think that I would buy stock in her continuing to have success doing that.
That's forward. A great choice, because it seems like the machine kind of like Hollywood wants it to happen.
Yeah,
because she keeps she's Ant-Man's daughter in the MCU now, which I don't know if that's ever going to lead to anything, but it's like she's getting high profile big parts, and she's the co-lead or really the lead, I would say, of Lisa Frankenstein, and that movie unfortunately didn't land at all box office wise, but she's really good in it. And yeah, that's a great choice. I think it'll happen just out of sheer will. Like they want it to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to you, Andy. I keep going fast.
You are going fast. You're not gonna give me any time. Okay. I'm gonna go with my guy, Joseph Quinn. It is funny because he's got a lot of fame already, because Stranger Things is a phenomenon. Mm-hmm. He's very prominent in the last season of Stranger Things, which was like 2 years ago. He's awesome in it. And then he's in Quiet Place Day One, which is a movie we both liked a lot. I loved it. It did well. It got good reviews. I think he's phenomenal in it. He is going to be in the new Fantastic Four movie. So, if that lands, he probably has a place in the MCU. I imagine he'll pop up in these new Avengers movies that are coming out. Just seems like he has a really bright future ahead of him, and I'm so impressed by him already. From Stranger Things to Quiet Place Day One. In Stranger Things, he's this stoner, Stranger Things was in the 80s, obviously, and just 80s long hair, grunge, or not grunge, but rock and roll, drugs. He's doing all this stuff, and then in Quiet Place Day One, he's this thoughtful, considerate gentleman, basically helping this woman with a terminal illness. And I talked about this when we talked about Quiet Place Day One. He does that whole thing where he's pretending like he's doing a magic show for her, basically just to make her happy, and they have to be quiet, of course. And he is so unbelievably charming in that scene. And I just think, you go from Stranger Things to that, and seems like I said, he's in Gladiator 2 later this year. So it's like his stock seems to be on the rise.
Yeah, he definitely, like you were saying, and we don't really mean this as a negative, one of those people, though, that Hollywood is trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
And maybe just the fair thing to say is Hollywood believes in them.
That's probably a nicer way to say it.
Or, people in Hollywood they're all seeing it too.
Yeah.
And they think it's going to happen. Yeah. So they all want to,
yeah.
And into their projects.
Just, again, not to be repetitive, I just thought he was so good in Quiet Place Day One. I just loved that performance. I loved that movie. And, kudos to him, and of course to the actress. The gimmick, of course, of that movie is that you have to not make noise. So they're doing a lot just with their actions and their facial expressions and stuff. So if he can keep this momentum, if the Fantastic Four movie works and it lands, I think you're going to just hear a lot of Joseph Quinn conversations.
Yeah. He was one that I was strongly considering, but he kind of violated, for me, the see him in two things, because I still have not watched that season of Stranger Things. Yeah. So I've only seen him in Quiet Place, but I did like him so much that I was really considering for this. Yeah. But then I thought I need to see him in something else too. Also, just bringing up Stranger Things, I was thinking about it a lot as I made this list, because I was thinking, man, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have had Finn Wolfhard on this list. I would have been like, give me all the stock in that young man, because I think he's going places. And then just the past few years, it's been like,
Oh, he got strapped to this terrible
Maybe-
Ghostbusters franchise, and
not to be mean to the guy or anything, but like he's looks a little weird. He's grown up a little awkward,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
kind of like, well, maybe
yeah.
Maybe
I mean,
not.
really, you could almost have said like, after Stranger Things 1, I'd have bought stock in all those kids because they're
Exactly.
great,
Yeah.
and they're, for better or worse, like probably for better for them because they're probably making $1 billion off of it. Stranger Things is taking so long to film because like this new season is like, it's 8 episodes. They're all 2 hours apiece. And like, it's so consuming of them that they're not doing a whole lot of other stuff. I mean, Millie Bobby Brown did what was that, Damsel?
Yeah.
Which was, completely average in every way. She wasn't bad in it.
right.
But yeah, it's like, that's so and Finn Wolfhard is in the, he has a part in Jason Reitman's Saturday Night Live movie that's coming out, I think,
Okay.
next month. So maybe that'll show it,
Yeah.
maybe he'll be able to.
Hopefully, like,
hope
because
so,
I'd
too.
still like to see it happen for him.
Yeah,
It's just like,
he's got a unique
Yeah.
look.
for sure.
But it's like, dude, get away from these Ghostbusters movies.
Yeah, but coming off of the first couple seasons of Stranger Things and I was like, this kid's
that's
going
a great
places.
point. He's kind of the scene stealer in it, chapter
Yeah.
1. I mean, he's
and playing totally different than he did in Stranger Things. In Stranger Things, he's like the real like aw shucks kind of kid, and then he plays like kind of the foul mouth,
oh
like
my gosh,
funny
he's
kid.
really good in it, chapter
Yeah.
1. Yeah, and he doesn't have the stink of it, chapter 2 on him.
Right.
Lucky him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great choice too. But yeah, Joseph Quinn, I think is. It'll be another one where if Gladiator 2 is good and he is good in it, it'd be a great year to have Quiet Place Day 1 and Gladiator 2 on your resume in the same year.
Absolutely. And you're so right about the Fantastic Four, because if you really make it into Marvel,
You're good. You're good.
as one of the Fantastic Four should be central Marvel
Yeah.
characters,
Yep.
much like the Avengers. So
Yeah.
if it works, it's a
then-
really big deal.
Yeah, he'll be able to ride that wave for a while.
Yep. All right. My next pick is one I don't know that I'm as confident about, but I mean, just kind of personally, I don't know if I think he's going to have a great career. I'm kind of mixed on a lot of the movies he's been in so far, but it's Harris Dickinson. He was obviously one of the brothers in Iron Claw, and I thought he was great in that. That's the
Yes.
one that sold it for me.
Oh yeah.
Where he'd been in a couple things before that. He was in the movie Triangle of Sadness, and
Oh, yeah.
and that was a movie that was like really like
Yeah.
about. But I still think looking back, he was good in it. But he was so good in Iron Claw. I mean, really every performance in Iron Claw was so good.
Agreed.
But he was kind of the one that I didn't know, where I was looking, again, where I'm going, who was
Who
that?
is
He
that
did look
guy?
it up, and I was like, oh, Harris Dickinson. Oh, that's right. That's the guy that was in these couple other things that I saw.
Yeah.
And he's only 28. He's kind of like, he's got leading man appearance about
for
him,
sure.
like kind of tall and handsome and
For sure.
strong. And I just think Harris Dickinson is going to be like, I could very easily see it happening for him, is what I should say with all of this.
For sure. Well, especially if you're basing it off of the Iron Claw, because I agree with you completely. I mean, Iron Claw's already come and gone, but I thought everyone was great in that movie, and I wish that movie would have almost gotten some more. I think it was well received, and I think it ended up making some money. But it's like, that was a really good movie with really good performances from everybody, including Zac Efron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jeremy Allen White's on my list too, but
Yeah.
I put him as the high end. Like
Yeah,
his stock's
yeah.
already there. He's crushing it with the Bear. He
I was
in
gonna say,
this movie,
people love him
he's-
from The Bear.
Yeah, like he's as hot as he's gonna be. So it's not exactly like buying that low stock that you think's
Right.
gonna launch. So
Right.
And I have to admit, I didn't find Jeremy Allen White until he was at peak.
me neither.
I watched The Bear after everybody else was talking
Yeah.
about it, and then I'm like, okay.
If I was behind I was behind on that one.
And he was in. I didn't even realize he was in the show Shameless. That was a show that ran for like 11 seasons, and he's as much a main character in that show as anybody. Like, I don't know. Like, I just didn't realize like Jeremy Allen White had this whole prominent
Yeah, I kind of missed all that.
before I met him. So
Yeah.
he's been well known, especially for people who I guess like the show Shameless.
Yeah.
For a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great pick.
Yeah. All right, what you got, Andy? You got
I think I'm going to go with our guy, Dan Stevens.
Dan Stevens.
Yeah,
All right.
and I got to admit, I don't have a lot of Dan Stevens knowledge about, up until this year. But again, I'm kind of basing off this year where he's given 2 performances that I thought were good performances in two movies that I really liked, Abigail and Cuckoo. And, very different. I mean, he's playing kind of the sleazeball in both movies, but he finds, they're two very different roles. And I was just like, he's a guy that I think stood out in both of those movies, when both of those movies had good performances all around, I thought. Yeah. But he's just one that, I don't know, he just has a look, and like I said, we talked about this, I think, when we talked about Cuckoo, like, very good at playing the sleazeball. So I guess it's like, definitely have some stock in him. I would like to see him try something different, other than just I'm the snake in the grass in this movie. But I liked him in both those movies, and I liked both of those movies. So that qualifies to me as like, all right, give me a little bit of Dan Stevens stock.
Yeah, and as we talked about with some others, and you said it, so different in each of those movies. And I mentioned before, he's in the latest Kong and Godzilla movie, which is not good, but he's in it and playing totally different in that one. So So
it's like, I mean, and, obviously we've made our opinions known on Kong X Godzilla, but it's like, dude is in, I mean, it was a high profile movie. Yes. So it's like that, Abigail and Cuckoo all in the same year, three extremely different movies. So it's like, all right, this guy is willing to be out there and be in different roles and weird roles. I mean, obviously doesn't get much more weird than Cuckoo. So I'm super interested to see what's next for him.
Yeah. That's a good one. All right. I'm going to throw one out from my high-end, already high stock actress list. And that's because she's only 21, I believe. That's Jenna Ortega.
Yeah, she was on my list.
Like,
especially now after Beetlejuice just killed it this weekend.
She's one, though, that, like, when I really think about it, I haven't seen a lot of the stuff that she's been in, that she's known for. Like, I never watched the Wednesday show.
I haven't either.
I saw
Not that I haven't seen that dance clip 12 trillion times, though. That clip alone just made her a star.
Yeah. She's obviously in the more recent Scream movies.
Yeah.
And I really like those movies. That said, like, she's good in them. I don't think it's a part where she really gets to shine necessarily. Mm-hmm. But it's the X. And then this Beetlejuice movie, which I didn't even like the Beetlejuice movie, but watching it and going, like, I'm watching it and I'm still thinking, this girl's gonna be a star.
Yeah.
Even in a movie I don't like.
Right.
Just her presence, her ability to react things. Also, she was in a movie, I can't remember if it was early this year and last year, called Miller's Girl, which again was not a good movie.
Is that the one with, is it Martin Freeman? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, not a good movie, but like, as I'm watching it, I'm still going, this girl's going to be a star.
Yeah.
So I've seen her in a couple of bad things that she still comes across good in. Mm-hmm. That's when I'm like, yeah, this girl's got something.
Yeah. And she's another one where it just really seems like kind of the machine wants it to happen. But I think now, especially after Beetlejuice, like I said, raking it in this weekend, she's a big deal. But yeah, I think she's really good in the two Scream movies. I mean, those are not written for her to shine, but just the fact that she can kind of slide into that world, and she does a good job being the damsel in distress at the beginning of Scream 5 or Scream 2022, whatever you want to call it. But then when she has to make that switch to kind of BA a little bit, and she's much more BA in Scream 6, and it's like very believable. She just has a likability, I think, to her. And, that's obviously important. Like, I don't know what she's like in real life. I really don't care what celebrities are like in real life, but it's like, as far as up on the screen, she has a likability to her.
Yeah. She's got the ability to be likable. She's obviously very pretty. She plays smart very easily.
She does.
Like, she's one of the people we've talked about before. I don't know how many of these celebrities are actually smart in real life, but some celebrities are just great at playing smart.
They are. Mm-hmm.
Anthony Hopkins, I think, is the all-time example of this.
Oh, definitely.
Maybe he's a genius guy, but I don't know. But he just plays.
He makes it seem
so
like
smart.
He is. Oh yeah.
Denzel's the same way. Like everything Denzel says,
Great
I
examples.
believe it because Denzel comes across like the guy
just
who's just
wise.
Knows, who just
full
knows.
of wisdom.
And she's got a little bit of that. Like she plays smart characters very well. Like she just kind of has that presence and a little bit of toughness for somebody who's like a little petite thing.
Yeah, she's got an edginess to her.
She's got a toughness to her.
Well, and like you take a movie like X, which is a movie I really like. I really, really like X, and she has to do like the, at the beginning, she's the innocent one, and she kind of takes a turn. We'll just say, let's leave it at that. And it's like she's believable doing all that stuff, and she's I think she got a lot of attention from X, where she has that scream. She sees a body in the basement. She lets out a scream, and just her facial expression, that got her a lot of positive attention. Just like, oh, this girl can pull this off. And then like that, I think really directly led to the Scream movies and stuff. So it'd be interesting to me to see if like they clearly want her to be a Scream queen. And that's a cool route to take. I'm a horror movie guy, so I'm fine with that. It'd just be interesting to see how it unfolds for her. If she wants to stay in that lane, if she's gonna branch out. You always wonder with these actresses, like how long until they give them a shot at a rom-com.
Yeah.
And a lot of for better or worse with rom-coms, but a lot of times that will tell you like, okay, she's made it. It's like Sydney Sweeney making Anyone But You, and it making $200 million worldwide, and it's like, okay, she's arrived.
Yeah. If anything, like she's one of those people that the struggle is going to be playing someone who's just totally normal.
Yeah.
Because you've got such a presence about you,
Yep.
It's hard for you to just be plain and normal. Like we even talked about that with Sydney Sweeney. Like it's hard to take Sydney Sweeney and say, hey, you're just going to play this normal girl who like you walk through the halls of your school and nobody's going to notice.
Right.
But everyone's going like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
You're Sydney Sweeney. You
Yeah.
can't do that.
Right.
And Jenna Ortega has a little bit of that too. Like the presence she brings, she can't just play some average, ordinary person. She needs to play people with more to them because she just naturally radiates that.
Yeah. And see, I guess probably next for her would be, I think they're doing another season of Wednesday. So that's almost guaranteed to be by the Netflix standards, a big smash. So she's really riding high right now.
Yeah. All right, Andy. What else you got?
I'm gonna go Mia Goth.
Okay. I wondered if she would be on your list. I
think she's one that she gets a lot of acclaim for what she does, but what she does doesn't reach a mass audience. So like clear, obviously her biggest thing so far is Ty West's X trilogy, X, Pearl, and Maxine. All those movies were profitable, but they made like $20 million because they only cost, I think X cost like $2 million, blah, blah, blah. But it's like she is, she's front and center in those movies. She's playing two different characters, one of them young, one of them old. Same character, but the young version and the old version. And then she's playing the Maxine character. She's front and center. She's doing a lot. I mean, a lot. And you kind of just can't take your eyes off of her. And I'm not talking like any kind of physical attributes. I'm just talking about her presence, a weird charisma about her, a willingness to just go for broke. I mean, she has that, the end credits of Pearl are her just making really weird, insane faces and smiles. Yeah. Literally for like 4 straight minutes.
Yeah, where the story was, it was supposed to end on a smile, and the director just never said cut, so she just said they're holding it like awkwardly and like fighting the twitching and tears that were happening. Yeah, really
incredible. It's hard to watch, honestly, kind of, because you're just like, okay, like this is weird, but it's like it's kind of incredible, and I don't know. I just think she's someone. Like I said, she gets acclaim for what she does. It just is not reaching a mass audience yet. I think. If it's still a thing, I can't keep track anymore with Marvel, but she's supposed to be in Marvel's Blade movie, but that keeps getting like postponed and kind of feels like it's never going to happen. But if so, I wonder if that will kind of...
times when movies are when there's that many delays and struggles and stuff,
it's not a good sign. No, so I just hope that she can, carve out a spot in Hollywood, because it seems like she's pretty fearless in what she'll choose to do, and I just think she has a really cool, unique kind of presence about her. And as a horror movie guy, I like the X trilogy. So
2 things I want to say about her. One is she's got a little bit of the Saoirse Ronan thing, where my fear would be she likes to choose interesting and weird projects where her talent and the success she'll have may not actually equate out.
I agree completely.
If she just wants to choose successful projects, I think she could get them and crush them. So it's not any doubt of her talent, but I just wonder, is she going to always kind of navigate through the real weird indie choices?
Possibly, because she did that. What is that? Infinity Pool, which I haven't seen, but it just sounds like just an all-time weirdo movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but. I don't know. Like I said, I'm basing it really basically off of the X trilogy.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I wonder is maybe it's not. Maybe they're not even on the same corner, but I just wonder if her and Anya Taylor-Joy are maybe a little bit on the same corner.
Yeah.
And, you know, Bill Simmons talks about this all the time. Like, you know, if one person's
We're gonna
kind of
market
just
correct the other one.
corrects the other, both really talented, both will make really unique choices
Yeah.
and have been in some strange things, but are always good in them. And so I don't know. Maybe we can have both.
Maybe I would almost say like I'm cautiously optimistic maybe about having Mia Goth stock.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know that it's gonna. You know, it's like you know, Sydney Sweeney, Jenna Ortega. Some of these people, you're like, look, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when, not if. I'm not as confident with her, but I'm anxious to kind of be along for the ride.
Yeah. All right. I want to share two people who I still feel like I have a lot of stock with them, and I'm not selling any of my stock, but I'm a little more like
Holding it a little tight.
yeah, I'm a little more looking at the stock going like, the stock may not do what I thought it was going to do. I got a male and a female example for both these. My male example is Lakeith Stanfield.
Yeah.
I've talked about it before how I love Lakeith Stanfield.
Yep.
Everything's in it, I just love. He's just not been able to.
Doesn't have like any momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the great way to say it. Doesn't have any momentum right now. We talked about the Book of Clearance was a huge bomb.
Yeah.
And it's not like a lot of his other stuff has been big hits, his films anyways.
Right.
Obviously he was in the show Atlanta. That's what kind of made him.
Yeah.
But he was in Sorry to Bother You, which was a weird indie movie that I liked and enjoyed his performance, but it's not one that like
Didn't really land with anyone.
It's not going to generate like years and years of chances.
Right.
You know, and he was in the movie The Harder They Fall, which was a Western movie that was straight to Netflix. Thought he was good in that, but that was a movie that I felt like didn't, again, garner lots of attention. So it just, I'm watching going like, I keep thinking like Keith Stanfield, the thing he has going for him is I think he's just one of the coolest dudes ever. Like, no matter what he's in, he comes across like this dude's so cool.
Definitely.
But I'm just wondering if like, is it going to translate to him having a sustained long career of continuing to be really cool on film?
Right. Yeah, and it's like, you know, obviously a part of rising up to the top is like you just have to have that talk and that buzz about you. Like, I mean, Glenn Powell has it. People talk about him. You see him on TikToks. You know, like he's out there. He's present. There's Glenn Powell conversations, and it doesn't feel like that, you know, with your example. And it's too bad.
And I think, to be fair, like Keith Stanfield, he's a little bit of a weird guy. And that's some of his appeal. Like the coolness is kind of like he's like that friend that's a little odd and you're never quite sure what to think about, but he just seems cool and uniquely himself.
Yeah. That's not to say that everyone has to be out there like Glenn Powell is.
Right. So, I mean, just thinking of it, like, could I have pictured Lakeith Stanfield being the star of Twisters instead of Glenn Powell? And it's like, no, I can't actually see that. Like, it just wouldn't have fit. So maybe my biggest fear is there going to be the vehicles for Lakeith Stanfield that gets to show off what he does so well that's going to make him the star I think he should be? And so why I say I'm not selling into my stock because, you know, maybe next year Lakeith Stanfield's in one of the biggest movies of the year.
Yeah, you never know.
And I would say I knew it. I always thought he was this cool.
Right.
My doubt really is now just about whether or not everybody's going to buy into Lakeith Stanfield as being one of the coolest dudes.
Well, and it's like you said too, unfortunately for him, it wasn't just that the Book of Clarence bombed. I mean, it bombed, you know, but yeah, it's just another great choice. Like I said, you just like, come on, dude, like you need to get some traction here. Like you got to, like I'm thinking like, I don't even know what's on the horizon. You know, with a lot of these people, I know what the next step is. Right. I don't even know.
My female example, and it's not a one-to-one. She's not exactly all the same things I just said about Lakeith Stanfield apply to her, but Florence Pugh.
Yeah, she's on my list too.
A year or two ago, like I would have had her as the top female. Like I've got the most stock in her, and for whatever reason, it just feels like the momentum has really slowed. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm reading it, but
I don't know. I mean, she was memorable in Oppenheimer, but I think the big thing with her is like it was Oppenheimer last year. I don't think there's been anything since then, has there?
I can't remember if it was since, but around the same time, she also did that movie with Zach Braff. Zach Braff put her in a movie, and it wasn't a hit at all.
It did
really poorly, and I think it wasn't received critically very well either.
You're right.
And it was kind of like, why did she do this movie?
Why did she do this? But she's another one that's tied up right now in the MCU.
Yeah.
So that may change because she's got Thunderbolts coming out, I think, in May, which is a big MCU thing.
And probably my fear is that I just don't trust that her part in the MCU is going to be, you know, like Joseph Quinn. He's one of the Fantastic Four.
Right.
Florence Pugh is playing, what's her name, like Yelena or something?
Yelena.
And she's
Black Widow's sister.
She's basically the Black Widow replacement. And I'm like, being the Black Widow replacement isn't the same as being one of the Fantastic Four.
It's not. I will say this, though, as an MCU nerd, people like her. Like the MCU nerd, like
I'd say, and
people love her. She's in the Hawkeye
like her.
I do too.
Yes.
She's in the Hawkeye TV show, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
And she has a great back and forth with Kate Bishop. Haley Steinfeld.
Yes.
Steinfeld?
Yes.
Yeah, they have just some phenomenal back and forth, and Florence Pugh is funny and menacing and all the things. So I think the potential is still there. Yeah. But I think, and maybe just you haven't heard from her because she is, involved in Thunderbolts, and the MCU is keeping that really hush hush. They're kind of keeping that on the down low. She does have a kind of a rom-com drama type thing coming out with Andrew Garfield.
Right.
And I think she has like a terminal illness and those movies, it's like they either kind of come and go quietly or they just turn into a big thing. Right.
And we should also mention she was in Dune 2, but a very small part.
That's right.
And I think that's maybe what's getting me is her last couple movies, like the small part in Dune 2, memorable but not very big part in Oppenheimer. It just kind of felt like, here are these movies that I kept thinking, okay, here's where she's gonna like,
and then she's and it's doesn't have a ton to do, really.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
it's funny though because it's like she's not doing a lot, but she is adding really good movies to her resume.
That's true.
Like like if you're not a movie nerd like us, and you just go, man, she was in Oppenheimer and Dune 2.
Yeah,
and that looks good. So maybe once the MCU stuff really gets rolling, maybe that'll benefit her. And
yeah. And there was the worry that Don't Worry, Darling was a movie that kind of stained everybody that was involved with it. That was one of her first big leading roles.
Yes, and there was so much. Was it controversy?
Like behind the scenes.
Like Olivia Wilde directed it, and I don't remember what all happened.
There was weird stories. And
like
weird
she
stories
hated it or something. I don't know.
And weird stories about Chris Pine and Harry Styles, who were both in it, like supposedly having beef or something.
Yeah.
Some weird.
And then by the time the movie came out, it was like nobody really cared because they only wanted to talk about the controversy.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the movie was fine but forgettable.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but she does seem to be one of those people that it's like even if it is like a Don't Worry, Darling, you've never yet heard like, man, Florence Pugh stinking up the joint in this movie.
Yeah.
Like true. It's another one I do think will happen. I think it will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I want to do a director.
Okay.
And I'm kind of breaking my own rule here. And I'm just basing this off how much I liked his movie that came out this year. I'm going Osgood Perkins.
Okay. I thought maybe you would.
Yeah, not a big surprise probably, but Longlegs to me was so good. And I guess too, it's like even if you didn't love Longlegs, you cannot, I don't think, deny that movie had just such a uniqueness to it. Yeah. It looked unique. It was it was like it wasn't just some cookie cutter horror movie. Like I said, whether you liked it or not, or whether it landed for you or not, it is different. It is weird. It is a lot of things. So you just as a horror movie guy, I just go, okay. Like obviously, I can't wait to see what this guy's doing next. He has another horror movie coming out, I believe, in February called The Monkey, and it's based off of Stephen King's short story. So like I said, I'm breaking my own rule because I actually still haven't seen his previous works, Osgood Perkins. I think he did 2 or 3 films that were well received, but didn't make any kind of big splash. Longlegs has made over $100 million. It was a movie that people were talking about. You see memes and TikToks, and it does all the things like we talk about. So he definitely seems to have a forward momentum. I mean, clearly Nicolas Cage is getting the attention, and that's fine. That's kind of the price you pay for being a director, I think. But as a movie nerd and as a horror movie lover, he's on my radar for sure. And if this next movie lands, it's going to be like, okay, I like this guy. I hope he keeps making these weird, unique horror movies. So he's definitely one.
Yeah. I'll tell you the first filmmaker I wrote down, and again, not that he's super young, but he's still early in his filmmaking career. That's Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
He's 45 years old, but he's only made 3 movies.
Yeah. And he's 3 for 3.
And if I'm looking at it going like, well, he can make movies for the next, if, he lives, he can make easily movies for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
And so we could get 10 more Jordan Peele movies. And I'm like, give me all the stock in those next 10 Jordan Peele movies. Oh, yeah. Because I think it's going to, I have no reason not to be excited for whatever he does next.
Well, he has made 3 really different, really strange, and just really exciting movies. And he's doing the thing like he's doing I make like horror suspense movies, but they have something to say.
Yeah.
And he's managed to do that 3 times now. Maybe not quite as much with Nope. I don't know that it had quite as heavy of a message, especially not as Get Out.
Even if it's not heavy, there's still like the thing where film school professors should break it down and be like, he's saying something about spectacle here.
And I think to me the most impressive thing he's doing is he's making these movies that have something to say without coming across as like, oh, this guy is like so pretentious.
Yeah.
And he thinks he has so much to say.
You can enjoy it without the message, but then you can also enjoy the message.
There you go. Exactly. Oh yeah, that's a great choice.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think his next movie's not due out till like early 2026, I think, or late 20. Because I think it was at one point 2025, and then it got pushed back. It's like, gosh darn it, stupid strike really screwed everything up. But yeah, if he can do another one and he can be 4 for 4, that's impressive.
Yeah. And the thing about him is, I mean, I guess this would be true of anybody that we say that like their movies are awesome, but it's not just that he writes clever, original stuff. I mean, they are amazing looking movies. Nope was like a movie where I'm like, this could win Best Cinematography at the Academy Awards.
Yes.
So he's making like really high end, like he's one of the few people that could make genre movies like he is, and studios trust to give the budget to do whatever he needs to make it the way he wants to make it.
Oh yeah, and it seems like he very quickly earned himself just complete creative control with Get Out and everything. And I mean his 3 movies, like I have zero doubt we could do a pretty lengthy podcast just diving into those 3 movies. You know, there's a lot to talk about with all of them, whether it's like the deep messages, just how entertaining they are, or like you said, the visual of them. Nope is so visually pleasing. That's such a cool movie.
Yeah.
Actually, like every time I watch Nope, I probably watched it like 4 times. I like it more every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great choice.
All right. Want to do one more round each? Well,
yeah.
Unless you just want to go more than that. But
no, I'll do one more.
Okay.
Trying to decide now which one I want to do.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
I think what I'm going to do is I was going to play it safe, and we can have the Austin Butler conversation again. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with another director, and again based off of this year, Fede Alvarez.
Okay.
I think we talked about it. I think Alien Romulus. I think it was his 4th movie. He did Evil Dead. He did Don't Breathe. He did one of the dragon tattoo movies, and he did Alien Romulus. I've not seen what is that called?
Is it like Girl in the Spiderweb or something like that?
Something like that. I haven't seen it, so I can't even comment on it. The other 3 movies, Evil Dead, Don't Breathe, and now Alien Romulus, I really enjoyed all of those. And again, I'm talking a lot about horror movies today. He's just doing movies in a genre that I really, really love. And so, again, I don't even know what his age is, but it's a fairly young directing career. And he's not doing like one a year. Like I think Evil Dead was like 2013 maybe, something like that. Don't Breathe a couple years late. He's like seems like an every couple years type of guy. But I've liked all of his movies. I think he does. He's doing the thing where he's keeping the budget fairly, really low. I think on the first couple, and even Alien Romulus, $80 million budget. That's incredible for a movie in which as much goes on as it does in Alien Romulus.
When you look at the budgets of some other movies, I still not get over the fact that Fincher's The Killer was like, what was it, like 175 million
crazy.
Or something like that, which I know a lot had to do with, COVID and strikes or something.
Yeah.
But
still, so I guess, he's doing a lot of things that I like, and it's resulting in a lot of 3 movies that I like.
Yeah.
Like none of them are my favorite movie, but it's just 3 movies where it's like, cool. As a horror suspense guy, I'm really happy with these 3 movies.
Yeah. He's 46 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. So right there with Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
Again, that's a 46, 45 as a director is about like saying 30 as an actor,
yeah,
I think.
That's fair. Yeah.
But yeah, I think with filmmakers like that, I think maybe one of the reasons why it's easier to gravitate towards horror movie directors is you really get a sense for what the director's into. And if the director's into good stuff, then you have more faith in them. Whereas if you start to go to the more studio movies,
Yeah.
you don't know, well, as the director, he maybe has some talent, but is it just because he's doing this kind of can't fail property?
Yeah.
I mean, again, not to diminish anybody who does MCU movies, but the MCU is such a machine
Yeah.
that like
they're getting what they want,
Right.
no matter who's directing the movie.
Like the director, you can't make a lot of judgments from the director's MCU stuff.
Can't.
You'd have to
You
judge
can't.
their other stuff.
Because that is such an MCU thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Fede Alvarez, with Jordan Peele, with
Peele,
Austin
yeah.
Perkins, you're really getting a sense of like
These are their movies.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I would just say real quickly, I'm not, this is like almost a separate category of like not ready to buy stock, but I just want to say several so far this year that we've talked about, some good young person performances. I'm thinking like the girl in Abigail.
Yes.
The girl in Late Night with the Devil.
Yes.
The lead in the First Omen.
Mm-hmm.
Those were just 3 performances. It's like they weren't the performances of the year, but it was some young actors that I wasn't actresses that I wasn't familiar with at all that did a good job in 3 movies that I liked.
Yeah.
So shout out to kind of these really young up and comers.
Yeah. I had Nell Tiger Free on my list because
Yeah.
of the First Omen.
Yeah.
I thought that's sort of maybe one of my biggest swings of like I really don't think anybody knows who that is. I technically have I've seen him in 2 things thing because she was lead of First Omen and she was in Game of Thrones for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'll tell you what though, I rewatched First Omen the other day. I think it's a really good movie.
yeah.
Like it's a good movie for what it is, and she's another one. Like she's just got a look. I don't know. She's good.
Yeah.
So shout out to these young actresses this year.
I'm going to throw out some names. These aren't going to be my final pick, but just people that I did write down. I
I
wrote
have a
down
couple too.
Colin Turner, who was in Boys in the Boat, and then he was in what is the show called with Austin Butler, the World War II fighter pilots, Masters of the Air.
Masters of
is
the
what it's
Air,
called.
yeah.
And he was very different in those 2 things, and so that really stood out to me. Dominic Sessa from The Holdovers, who I've only seen in the one thing. Otherwise, I would love to say I'm buying lots of stock in
Right.
him, but I need to see him do it in something
Yeah.
else as well. McKenna Grace, who once again is also sort of stuck in the terrible Ghostbusters
Yeah.
world, but she's a young actress who I think is really talented,
Yeah.
and I'm curious to see if she can make the transition from child star to
Yeah, I think she's
Regular
good too.
star.
They're so sad. They're so weighed down with these Ghostbusters movies.
Jodie Comer, who was in The Last Duel, Free Guy,
Yeah.
and this year she was in
Bike Riders.
Bike Riders.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I really liked her in Free Guy.
Yeah.
And I was just disappointed in Bike Riders. So it's hard for me not to hold that against her.
But my final pick is going to be Caitlin Dever. And she hasn't anything that I know of this year. This really went back to like I was looking through the movies I watched this year, and then I looked through the movies I watched last year.
Yeah.
And she was in that movie that we enjoyed, No One Will Save You.
Yeah.
The alien invasion
Oh, I
movie.
love that movie.
she basically has to carry.
She carries that
essentially by
movie.
herself. And I was like, this is a young lady that I liked from her days where she's on the show Last Man Standing, the Tim Allen
Yeah.
sitcom, and I thought was kind of a standout in that.
Yep.
And then she was in the movie Booksmart,
Yeah.
which was a hit.
Yep.
And
People
again,
really
thought
liked
she
that
was
movie.
good in it, but she's kind of doing the same character. And then with that movie, No One Will Save You, I was like, this girl's just really good.
Oh, yeah.
And she's definitely got like her specific thing where she plays, again, kind of really smart, snarky
Yep.
characters. Almost like, well, no, it's going to be a bad comparison, so I won't make it. But I was about to say almost like a David Spade, young David Spade type thing, where he's always playing like nerdy, like
Yeah.
witty, like sharp
Right.
tongue guys. But I don't want to. That sounds like an insult to her to say
Right.
she reminds me of young David Spade. But
That's really funny.
she kind of does have that like real biting sarcasm.
Yeah.
Type thing, but then, like I said, the movie No One Will Save You, where she
man.
just carries it with a very physical performance.
Very.
And that was the movie where I'm like, yep, I'm going to go ahead and buy some more stock
Oh
on
yeah, she's
Caitlin Dever
awesome
right
in that
now.
movie. Yeah, she's so good. That's a great choice.
Thank you.
I would also throw out too, and shame on me, I don't have her name written down. It just popped in my head. The girl, Kierna Shipman, or she's in Long Legs and Twisters.
Yes.
And she's got really small parts in both movies. So it's not like, man, give me all her stock.
Right.
But she was also in that Amazon Prime time travel killer movie, like Totally Killer.
Yes.
She's a star of that. She's very memorable in Long Legs, and then she's not really given a whole lot to do in Twisters, but she's in the opening scene. And she had Long Legs and Twisters like in back-to-back weeks. And in their own way, those were both big hits. And in Longlegs, she has to be weird and creepy, and she pulls that off. And Totally Killers, she has to be, charming and likable, and she pulls that off. So she's definitely one I think to keep your eye on, even though I don't know her name.
Right. The last two kind of high end guys that I wrote down, and both of them were too old for me to once I put my own age restriction on here. Chris Hemsworth, because even though he's already at his peak, we talked about after Furiosa. I'm just so fascinated with what the next stretch of his career is going to look like, because I still think he's going to continue to surprise people and do more than people expect.
I think so too.
And so that's why I think there's still some stock to go up there.
He just has too much charisma, and he seems to just be a really naturally funny guy. He was even funny in it's a really bad episode for Ghostbusters, but he's in the female Ghostbusters, which is just one of the all-time worst movies, and he's hilarious in it. And that is just an abysmal movie.
Yeah.
But it's he can obviously be Thor and do great at it, but he can be funny. He's really menacing and kind of a layered character in Furiosa. I agree with you completely.
Yeah. And the other one I wrote is, again, just somebody who I've had stock in for a long time and has been riding really high, is Adam Driver.
Yeah.
And
I like Adam Driver a lot.
Yeah. For whatever reason, I've always liked Adam Driver since the first thing I saw him in, and he's obviously got Megalopolis coming out soon.
That makes me a little nervous.
Which is
Coppola.
Yeah.
It was hit or miss, and it's like $120 million budget. And I'm
and Coppola
a 0%.
He financed it himself.
There's a 0% chance that movie makes back its money.
No.
0%. And then the narrative is just going to be, Coppola sunk all of his money again, because he's done this before. And my fear is that even if it is a really good movie that Driver's really good in, no one's going to be talking about it.
Right. So,
but I do like Adam Driver. Also, Adam Driver, just a side note, hilarious on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen the skits where he's the old man, like the oil baron. He's so good. And then they do the the behind the he's Kylo Ren,
the undercover boss.
Yes. That's what I was trying to say. He's
That's
so funny. And say what you will about those Star Wars movies, I think Kylo Ren was cool. He had a cool look, and Adam Driver's good in those movies. I think.
But I think the point I was wanting to make and kind of forgot what I was trying to make with Megalopolis is Adam Driver's one of those guys that really famous directors he seems to be doing the thing where he wants to kind of go around and make movies with all of the most talented guys. So obviously he made Ferrari last year with Michael Mann. He made Megalopolis this year with Coppola. He's just he's somebody I'm interested in because I think he's smart with his choices.
I think so
even
too.
if they're not always great choices, he's smart and going, I want to work with these really respected directors. And so I think because of that, it's going to help him be in movies that are at least keeping him, working and in the limelight.
And, if you ever just want to feel great and have just a great experience, watch Marriage Story. Just such a fun, uplifting movie. Just a great time.
Yeah. So, obviously you're joking, but I will say that's a movie I've watched twice because it's so
good,
well done.
Holy cow.
And he's so good in it.
Yeah, holy smokes.
And so is Scarlett Johansson.
She is.
Great
She's
performances
phenomenal.
from both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we say it every week and we meet it every week. Let us know, people, what you think.
Yeah,
who are your people you're buying stock in? I am curious. I bet there's young actors and actresses that the younger generations would be like, oh, you should have been, I'm buying all the stock.
Oh, I'm sure. I know.
We also didn't even mention somebody like Timothée Chalamet. Didn't even come up in our conversation.
I know. There were people I was going to write down Zendaya, but it's we've probably, we talked about her when we did Dune 2. She's probably already arrived.
And I would say, she's already that Apple stock we're talking about. You
so
can
I was
buy it, but where's there to go?
Same thing with Austin Butler. It's I don't need to have another Austin Butler conversation right now.
Right. So, but then there's probably plenty of people that I don't even know to think about.
Probably.
That are in shows that teenagers are watching. I don't know. Maybe Outer Banks has a star that all the young people are going.
Yeah, there's
what is
that? Katie Love, The Summer I Turned Pretty. There's all these tween. We used to, what I used to call them tween shows.
That I have no connection to whatsoever, but very well could produce our next stars. I mean, look at how many stars apparently coming out of Euphoria, a show that we never watched, but they're not targeted at us. Maybe there's a show like that right now that multiple stars are going to blossom from.
And then there's people I probably could have brought up, your Tom Hollands and stuff like that. But, I will say, I just want to say too, I want to make it clear. I still have just a ton of stock in Air Bud.
Yes.
Both the carrot, the actual dog, and the movie series. I have not given up. My Air Bud stock is still where most of my money is at. So I still believe.
Yeah, I mean, that's the stock that's going to put your grandkids through college.
Exactly.
Right there,
I'm
because it's so
thinking
dependable.
generations down the road. So inevitably, there probably will be an Air Bud reboot at some point, or they'll make like a Disney Plus Air Bud show. So I'll get the last laugh. It'll be fine. My stock might be a little cold right now, but it'll heat back up.
I absolutely love it. That's a bit that we keep.
It's
keep doing.
It's been retired for a while, so I don't feel like I'm running it into the ground. And it was just like probably time for an Air Bud joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very timely. All right. So yeah, let us know who the people are that you're
Absolutely.
buying stock in. Let us know if you're shorting the stock of anybody that we're buying
if you
into.
think
That'd
we're
be
just
interesting.
completely missing it.
Yeah. Because I like to stay positive in the show. I thought about having that be a thing that we talked about, like who's some people that you were shorting that Hollywood's pushing, and we're going, I don't think it's going to happen. But I was like, I don't want to be negative. On
Yeah,
the
because
show.
last week, I mean, just inevitably had to be a little negative. So
Yeah. So I'm trying to keep it positive, but people let us know if you disagree with our picks. I'd love to know.
I would too, and let us know why. Like, what are we missing?
Absolutely. So we appreciate you guys joining us.
Absolutely. I want to go see a movie so badly.
Yeah.
So we will talk eventually about a new movie again.
Yeah. Sometime soon.
Yeah.
But as for now, we'll figure it out. What's next
We
week?
always do.
And we'll see you guys
See you next week.
next week.